Alright. Welcome to reaction video. That's right. Of me watching the college football playoff selection show on which four teams are going to the playoff. That's right, they're going to announce it, but by the time you see this, you know what four teams are in it, but I don't. I don't. Yeah. I decided to do a reaction video because this is big. This is the show of the year. Yep. If you're a fan of this, yeah, we're gonna find out. And I did a video of me talking about the conference championship games, recapping them. Then I give you what four teams are going to the playoff, what my four teams are going to the playoff. Okay? And we're going to see if I'm right. I hope I'm right because I think that'll be a great Final Four, you know. I have Michigan number 1, Washington number 2, Texas number 3, and Alabama number 4, which means I have Florida State out and Georgia out. Yep. Two teams are not going to be happy. Two teams are... It's usually one team that gets mad, but it's going to be two teams. This is the biggest weekend ever for the committee because they got their hands full. There's so much to discuss. You know, it's not like last year's where it's kind of easy to predict, but this is the toughest one. It is. So... hopefully a lot of people will agree with their decision. I know there's going to be people that are going to disagree no matter what they pick. I'm sure everyone knows that Washington and Michigan should be safe. They should be 1 and 2. We got to find out what the third and fourth spots are, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, I gave you my top 4 teams, and I read some Twitter or X comments, because I like to read other people's opinions. You know, I did that on there and YouTube as well. And the original plan was for me to watch this show live, but I couldn't, because I stayed up all night. However, I recorded this on my PC so I can watch it at any time. And no, I did not get on social media or YouTube, because if I did, I would have gotten spoiled on who's in and who's out, you know. So yeah, I have not seen this before. This is my first time this year. And I think that's all I gotta say, man. I'm not gonna react to the whole show, mainly the beginning, and we'll see how long that takes. Maybe before they go to commercial, because usually they don't go to commercial break for a while, because you know they'll talk about it. You know, it's Reese Davis and the guys in the studio talking about it, giving their thoughts and opinions, and then they'll show the rankings, the official Final Four, and then they'll announce which bowl games will be played at, and then they'll talk about if they think the committee got it right or wrong, and then after that they'll give other people's opinions, and then eventually later in the show they'll reveal the New Year's 6 games. Yeah, speaking of the New Year's 6, every year I also do another video of me talking about predicting which teams are going to which bowl games. I did not have the time to do that this year because there was so much to talk about for this playoff. The committee, it's chaos. They got their hands full and all that. But in the comments section on that video I did late last night, or in the middle of the night, I did put in the comments on which teams I think they're going to which bowl games. Alright? So yeah, I'm going to find out if I'm right or wrong on those New Year's 6 games as well. And Bowl Mania opens. Bowl Mania is now open. It opened at 6 p.m. Central Time on Sunday evening. So yeah, Bowl Mania is already open. And I will do, every year I do a video of me predicting all the bowl matchups. So I will do that again this year. So I got that to look forward to. The most wonderful time of the year coming up again. I know, not Christmas. Well, Christmas too, but Bowl Mania as well. And yeah. Well, there's one more game left next Saturday. That's the Army and Navy game. And I'm mentioning this because that is a huge game for both teams, because both teams are 5-6, meaning one of those two teams will go to a bowl game, and one of them will not go to one. You have to be at least 6-6 to be bowl eligible. If you're 5-7, you're not going to be in it. All right. So yeah, that's always the one game next Saturday, and then the weekend after that, that's when the first bowl matchups begin. All right. Yeah, I know. We're approaching that along with the Christmas holidays. So yeah, that's why it's always a fun month. Anyway, I think that's all I gotta say. I won't be pausing the video. I'm not gonna be pausing it because it's gonna be a long reaction video. But I'm curious to hear what Reese Davis, I think Joey Galloway's always there, Kirk Herbstreit. Usually Jesse Palmer and David Pollock are there too, but David Pollock he got released from ESPN earlier this year, and Jesse Palmer is now a commentator. So I don't think he's going to be there. Maybe someone else will replace him. Anyway. Yeah, it's kind of weird that they're doing this on an NFL Sunday. They've always done that. The past couple of weeks on Tuesday night, they'll do that top 25 ranking show. But I guess they can't do this on Tuesday. It's probably too much. So yeah, I know they're doing this the day after. They can't give the committee a day off to decide, especially the way this past weekend has gone by. So, yeah. Anyway, like I said, my 4 teams in the playoff are Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, which means I have Michigan versus Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and Washington versus Texas in the Rose Bowl. Those will be great matchups. I can't see either one of those being a blowout, Here's what I don't want to see. I said this in my other video. I don't want to see Florida State in it. I know they deserve to be in it. They're undefeated. They won their conference championship, but they don't have their starting quarterback. That's huge. That's a huge loss. If they had their starting quarterback, they would have won this game by at least 30 points. They would have. Their first game was against LSU. They dominated the second half. It wasn't close in the second half, I know that was a big win. But, without their starting quarterback, they struggled against a crappy Florida Gators team last weekend, and they only beat Louisville. The final score was only 16-6. They didn't play. I mean, they won, but I don't know, man. I'm afraid if Florida State gets in the playoff, I'm afraid that they're going to get clobbered, and I don't want that. No one wants that. I know this 10-year history of this playoff format, there's been a lot of blowouts, but this is the final year. This is the final year of this 4-team playoff format. And I'm kind of glad that there's chaos. I'm sure if you're not a fan of any of the top 8 teams right now, you want chaos, including me. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it. I know this video is already over 10 minutes. I just want to say everything before I start playing the video because I don't want to be talking much while the other guys are talking at the same time, you know, because I want to hear what they have to say. So yeah, I'm not going to pause the video, but let's get into it right now. I recorded this on TSN, the Canadian sports channel. It's basically the Canadian version of ESPN. Here we go.
Welcome to the College Football Playoff Selection Show.
Hopefully the sound is good.
Presented by
and hopefully this is not
AT&T.
copyrighted. I don't think it is, because
the drama, the dilemma, the controversy surrounding the pursuit of this trophy over the entire history of the 14 playoff
there you are,
has been mostly
Reese
lacking.
Davis.
And now it's here in abundance. This season's been defined by near misses and scares, and finally, it landed the big one. Alabama made its statement by stopping two-time reigning Georgia's 29-game winning streak and making its case for the playoff. Texas holds a trump card head-to-head against Alabama and added an emphatic win in the Big 12. Florida State, wounded, refused to slink away and make things easy for the committee. They still have a case. Michigan and Washington are probably safe at this point, so what that leaves, 4 teams for 2 spots. You might be thinking, boy, this would be the perfect year to start that 12-team playoff.
Exactly. Or even a 6-team playoff format would be nice.
Tough calls that will make and break some dreams.
It's a shame that we can't have that this year.
Numbers are everywhere.
You know, yeah, I saw some comments. JJ Watt said this on Twitter/X. We need a 6-team playoff format, emergency. Washington and Michigan get a bye. Oh, that is perfect. They deserve that bye anyway. That'd be great. It's a damn shame that they can't do something like that. Or even 8 teams would be great too. I'll be honest, I think 12 teams is too many. I don't know why they're going from 4 to 12, you know. You think they would try 6 and then 8, you know, but no, they're going from 4 to 12. You know, that's weird. Why do we have to wait forever until that happens? Yeah, it's like some kind of contract or something. Yeah, next year, a lot of changes next year. A lot of teams are leaving their conference, going to a different conference. It's like a whole different league next year.
Remarkable to think that we are in the 10th
here's
year
all the people.
of this football playoff era. Grapevine, Texas, 13
yeah,
committee
Texas.
members
Well,
spent the
maybe
weekend
they'll probably
watching
put
games,
Texas in it.
hashing over
Plus, the
numbers,
national
talking about their
championship game
football
is in
judgment, and
Texas,
ultimately
so that'd be perfect for them.
Release the teams
right?
that are in the college football playoff.
You know,
it is a virtual
Texas
lock
has never
that
been in the
Michigan
playoff.
Will be in the playoff for the 3rd
Never.
consecutive year after winning the Big Ten championship.
All the
game
other teams,
against Iowa last
all the
night,
top
the
8
watch party
teams, they've been in it at
Indianapolis,
least
waiting to
once.
see where and who
Even
they will
Florida
play.
State
Austin
was in
is
it,
a place
but they were in
where
it
they
like
have
9 years ago.
playoff euphoria.
But they were
Texas
in it
with a
that
chance
one
to
year,
go in
their
for the
first year of this
made
playoff.
its
But
case by winning the
Texas
Big 12
Longhorns have
and
never
the
been in it.
non-conference win of the season, winning early in September in Tuscaloosa.
This is gonna be,
Conference
man, this is
championship
gonna be
games. One of the criteria.
This is gonna be
if
something.
Teams are closely
2
grouped
teams are
together.
gonna get pissed
Washington
off for
beat
not getting
Oregon
it, and they have the
twice,
right to get pissed off.
34-31 in the Pac-12 championship game, the final one of this version.
See, if
of
Georgia
Pac-12
were to
on
win,
Friday night, and
we
Washington
wouldn't be
appears
having
to
this
safe getting into the
conversation. We
playoff.
wouldn't be.
Texas was dynamic.
Alabama would be out.
Obliterating Oklahoma State. Quinn Ewers threw
If
for
Florida
1,000,000
State were
yards
to
in the first
lose,
half
they would
and
be
finished
out.
with 4 touchdowns as they
It would have been easier for the committee, but that didn't happen.
In their season, Alabama underdogs beat Georgia 27-24, stopped the Dogs' 29-game winning streak. The 2-time reigning champs now left hoping.
I also watched
the
what's it called, Championship Drive, which is an hour before this show started. I recorded this at 10 a.m. Central Time, so now this right here is 11 a.m. Central Time. So I watched the first hour before this show. It was with Kevin Nagandi, Sam Acho,
Jordan Travis out for the season.
Robert Griffin III, or RG3, Dan Mullen, and Dan Orlewski.
They didn't get much out of him in the
They were kind of funny. They're all giving their opinions.
They won, and they are perfect at 13-0. We've got
all
reporters
right.
everywhere. Jen Ladders at Michigan. We have Molly McGrath at Washington. Chris Buttons at Texas. Marty Smith at Alabama. Laura Rutledge, where they're still holding out some hope at Georgia. And Harry Lyles, and perhaps the most controversial spot of them all, along with Marty at Alabama. At
I
Florida
hope I'm
State.
right.
We will hear from all of them coming up in a matter of moments. Glad to have you with us.
Booger McFarland and Greg McElroy are the replacements.
Booger McFarland, Joey Galloway, Greg McElroy, and Kirk Herbstreit. So, Kirk, you're usually the most powerful.
They're
man
in the different
football.
studio.
At the moment, it's Brandon.
Usually they're in the
NFL's
Sunday countdown studio, which I find that weird. This studio looks better
Once he gets
for this.
He'll type them up. We'll see them when everybody else in America
that guy
does.
travels so many times.
Well, this is the first
How does
time
he
since
keep up with
2014 that we've had this. You know, we're 5 teams from the 5 power conferences are up at the top as champions and deserve an opportunity. And this is where the committee is going to split hairs. And if you look at it, you know, after Michigan and Washington, you start to get to that 3 and 4 spot. You get to these cluster of teams. I think sometimes people look at this and they think, okay, head-to-head should matter. Keep in mind, this is not weighted differently. It's not as if head-to-head matters more than the other aspects. I mean, you go right down to head-to-head, you can see the strength of schedule. Look at the last one. Relevant factors such as unavailability of key players and coaches that could have affected a team's performance. So I think that's good. They have to be looking at that. How much do they weigh that? I think at the end of the day, really, Greg, I think is Florida State unequivocally a better team than these other teams, then you put them in the top 4.
I don't think they are.
If you are putting them there because they're undefeated, if you're putting them there because they won the ACC championship, you can see a championship is not like that's it. It's one of the factors, just like an injury is a factor. So how they play that out will be very interesting to see how it impacts Florida State, positively or negatively.
Kirk, you're 100% right. I don't envy the committee today. It's a really difficult
decision.
Some
people have Florida State in the Final Four just because
really
they
valuable
deserve to be
are going
in
to get
it.
left out more than likely. But when you look at what the committee has said for 10 years, it's an opportunity today to practice what they preach.
Yeah.
They've been telling us for 10 years it's the 4 best teams. And right now, I think without a shadow of a doubt, Alabama is among the 4 best teams. Now, will the committee be willing to move them in front of a team that is currently undefeated as a Power 5 champion from the ACC with a great non-conference win against LSU? Or will they move them against a team that beat them head-to-head on their home field? I think Texas is in. The debate between Alabama and Florida State will rage on. And if they really want to
Alabama's a better team than Florida State.
Best teams, and it should be Alabama.
They beat Georgia.
This seems simple to me. It really does. It seems easy to me. Now, we are happy to arrive at a place where we have this many teams that are good enough to be in. But the decision of who is the top 4 teams seems fairly easy to me in watching these teams play last night, the last couple weeks. And so when people start to think about this committee and what their job is to just give us the 4 best teams. That's it. Not any connections to any things, not looking at who's the best
what this
games.
is all about, right?
The 4 best teams, and that seems easy to me.
Is it eye test or resume? Or is it a combination of both? Because I would challenge each and every one of you. How do you look at a team from an eye test standpoint without understanding who they played and who they beat, which gets us back to the resume? So at some point you have to combine both, and you have to understand that we have to look at the games played on the field. I never want to turn college football into a beauty contest. This is not a beauty pageant. Let's judge them how they look. We have to count the games. And to me, I hope the committee understands that Texas went to Alabama and beat them. I hope they understand that Florida State, regardless of who was playing quarterback, went 13-0 and won a Power 5 conference. And there's a reason that somebody like that has never been left out. And I just hope they do the right thing today.
You know, only one team, though, there's something is going to happen that hasn't happened before. because in addition to an undefeated team having never been left out, only one time has a team won a conference championship game in the Power Five been left out. That was Ohio State. And also, you haven't had anybody come
Ohio
from
State,
lower
they
than
needed
sixth
all the help
to
they
make
can,
the playoff.
but they were asking too much.
Either Texas or Alabama will be doing that. So while Florida State is sweating it out, while Alabama's sweating it out, maybe even Texas to a little degree.
I also like to listen to the College Game Day podcast
and they are
on the
not at
ESPN
Michigan.
app.
Jen Latta
Really
is at the
good.
watch
With
party.
Reese,
Those two teams,
Pete
we figure
Thamel,
will be 1-2 when the bracket
on
is
Fridays
unveiled in a
it's
few
with
moments, Jen. So
Stanford
what's the
Steve.
mood like with the Wolverines, who are going for the third consecutive year, but looking for their first playoff win?
Yeah, we're hanging out with the hardware here in Indianapolis in
Yep,
the
Jim
watch
Harbaugh's
party
back.
room. I'm told that this room last night was standing room only as
They
the
shut
Michigan
out
Wolverines
Iowa.
celebrated that
They
third
did.
straight title, and everybody was excited, staying up till about 4 in the morning. Some players even saying 5:30 in the morning. So maybe the vibe in here is a little sleep deprived or tired, but more than likely, guys, it's confidence. As that conference champion that is undefeated, they know they are in the college football playoffs, and they told me they really don't have a preference of if they are 1 or 2. As soon as those rankings are revealed, they will get back on the plane and head to Ann Arbor. The players will get the entire week off, as they have for the last 2 seasons, and then they will lock in on the playoff opponent, telling me there are still more goals to achieve with this team.
And Molly McGrath is in Washington. Molly, what's it like in Seattle right now?
Wow.
Well, Reese, it's a lot quieter here at
She went
Washington.
from-
Their head
she
coach,
was there in
Kalen DeBoer,
Arlington
just
for the
arrived
Big
at the
12
Huskies facility.
championship.
He's one of the only people in this building, and he'll watch the rankings reveal alone in his office. There is no watch party. There's no celebration surrounding today's announcement, and DeBoer said that's really proof of his team's confidence.
watch
They
party.
expected to be
Interesting.
here all
It's
along.
like they knew
DeBoer
they're
said
gonna
there's
get
a
in,
real case for his
right?
team to be ranked #1 and stressed that the Rose Bowl is the most preferable location because of location and travel and the history of
Oh,
that
yeah,
game,
well, they
especially in
deserve
the
to be in
final
that,
year of the Pac-12.
right?
And
Pac-12
DeBoer
team.
marveled at the coincidence that the last time Washington won a national championship was in the Rose Bowl against Michigan on January 1st, 1992. If they play in that game, it'll be 32 years to the day
Didn't
of
know
their
that.
last title, Reese.
And Molly, Washington does have an edge in strength of schedule. They also have a win against, or more wins against ranked opponents than Michigan does. So perhaps you'll get a bit of a surprise and see Washington at #1, though based on previous rankings, one would expect that would go to the Wolverines, but we'll wait and see once Brandon gets the word and types it into the Viz graphics machine. So here are the resumes of the other teams fighting for this spot. You look at their strength of the record. SOR means how an average top 25 team, what the percentage chance that they would achieve the record that they did, and you see all fare very well. Strength of schedule, Alabama has the huge edge, Texas then, and then Florida State well back in the pack, and then Georgia still has the 37th ranked schedule. So here are the reporters, as you know, Chris, Marty, Laura, and Harry at the various spots. Chris, it seems that with the conference championship and also the head-to-head win against Alabama, that among these teams, the Longhorns would be in the best spot.
They are. They're very confident in where they are right now. They're having a watch party a couple feet away from me. Confidence also comes from the fact when you look at what they've done on the field and also with their resume. Big 12 champions, and now they can say they have a win over the SEC champions when you look back at that early season win against Alabama. Steve Sarkisian said that's the biggest bullet point on their resume because if it was easy, more teams would do it, but they don't. However, confidence doesn't necessarily equal sleep. Not a lot of sleep for Sark last night because at this point, it's out of their hands. To a place where there also probably wasn't a lot of sleep, we go out to Tuscaloosa and Marty Smith.
Chris, thank you so much. Good morning. All is quiet here in Tuscaloosa as well, although Coach Saban did just walk right by me. He's just entered the facility a few moments ago. Offensive coordinator Tommy Reese walked over to me and goes, "What do you know, man? Tell me something." I said, "Sorry, man, we'll all find out in just a few minutes." But as Coach Saban said last night, they believe that they have proven their case. They beat Georgia, the #1 team in the country, winner of 29 straight and back-to-back national championships. So they believe their resume stands up against anybody in the country. I talked to Tyler Booker last night, the offensive lineman for Alabama, on the field after the championship game, and asked him, "What did you guys just show America?" He said
hope they
that the
both
Bama
don't
standard
get in.
can only be imitated,
Like,
not
I'm okay if
replicated,
Bama gets in,
and
but
we
I don't
hope
want
the
Georgia
committee
in
will
it
give
either.
us 2 more games to
Like
prove
both
it.
of them.
Now let's head over to
thank you.
championship town currently.
A lot of people are
Athens,
tired
Georgia,
of these
where
teams,
Laura
these
Rutledge
two
is with the
teams,
Dogs.
you know?
Marty, these
That's the
dogs are
truth.
hoping that the standard set throughout the regular season is what sticks in the committee's mind, not what happened in the SEC championship game where they lost to Alabama after 29 straight wins. And Kirby Smart actually used the words of Bill Hancock, the college football playoff executive director, saying this is not about the 4 most deserving teams. This is simply about the 4 best teams. Kirby said we are 100% one of the 4 best teams. And
Yeah,
he
but
told
you
me
didn't win.
he hopes they look
didn't
at the
win.
eye test. He said if
That's
you
the bottom
see
line.
who we've beat,
They
the top
lost.
20 teams that
They
we've had
lost.
success against on the road, and the way that we've played as a complete team,
Georgia
both
was the
offensively
favorite to
and
win that
defensively,
game.
he hopes that's
they
enough
didn't.
for a team that he cares a whole lot about.
That's why
Let's
I
go to
think
Harry
they're
Lyles
out.
in FSU.
They're not a conference champion.
Laura, I'm here inside the Champions Club, inside of Doak Campbell Stadium, where there is more optimism than concern
much to talk
for this
about.
Florida State team. Tate Rodemaker and Jordan Travis were the first 2 up here, and as you can see, they've been joined by their teammates up here. When I spoke to Coach Mike Norvell earlier, despite only getting less than 2 hours of sleep, he was very optimistic. He said, we've done this offensively, defensively, and with special teams, and after last night, we've done it with 3 quarterbacks. He feels good about their chances. Reese, we'll see how it goes.
Harry, we will, in a
wish
matter
somehow
of
the
moments. You know,
committee
as they
can
say,
say
if the
that.
facts are
We
on your
can't make a
side,
decision.
argue
We're
the
gonna have
facts.
6
if the law's
teams
on
in
your
it.
side, argue the law. If neither are on your side, then jump up and pound that table as hard as you can, and the coaches are doing just that.
It's not the most deserving. It's the best 4 teams.
I think a commercial break's coming up, so
it doesn't think that Georgia team is not one of the best 4 teams. I don't know if they're in the right profession.
We won the SEC.
We'll
We beat the number 1 team in the country. If you really want the 4 best teams, I think this team is one of the 4 best teams and one of the teams that's deserving to be in the playoff.
This may be a little bullish of me saying, but we'll play anybody in the country, and we'll find out if we're good enough or not. We have the team, the culture, the scheme, and the versatility of this team to play against anybody.
I believe in this team. I believe in what they can do. They showed up every single week and done it. So I don't really care about what everybody else's opinions are. Whatever the next opportunity is, I promise you they're going to show up.
The college football playoff selection
commercial
show
break, and I guess the rankings
presented
will be
by
revealed next.
AT&T. Connecting changes everything. And in part by Mercedes-Benz.
Who is that guy? That voice of ESPN? He sounds like
here.
a freaking
Now
robot.
through January
You hear that
2nd.
voice forever. Is that a real person saying? Alright, I paused the video. What if Texas didn't play Alabama this year? Then that means Alabama would have been undefeated, and Texas, they still have that one loss to Oklahoma. And I thought Texas would win against Oklahoma. They were the better team. They lost to Oklahoma at the very end of the game, so it was a close one. I knew it would be close, but I thought Texas would win that game. If they did, then they both should be in the playoff. That's why I think they should both be in it. You know, Texas beat Bama. Texas beat the team that beat the best team. That's the most important thing to think of. If Florida State had their quarterback, they would have easily beaten the Florida Gators and the Louisville Cardinals. They would have. Which means they would still be undefeated, and they should also be in the playoff. But I'm sorry to say that they're not the 4 best teams. They're not. I think Florida State, they can lose to any of the top 10 teams right now. Like if Florida State beats Missouri, Missouri's going to win, in my opinion. Missouri's number 9. Penn State's number 10. They can beat Florida State too. Texas is a better team. Alabama's a better team. Even Georgia's a better team. Ohio State's a better team. Oregon's a better team. I know. Florida State fans aren't going to like to hear that. I know. That's why I don't want to see Florida State in it, because I'm afraid they're going to get clobbered. So if they're not in it, then they'll be going to the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl always has the best ACC team in it if they're not in the playoff, and that's Florida State. Okay? I have Florida State playing against, who did I have them playing in the Orange Bowl? I forget, but it's in the comment section. But later in this show, I will find out if I'm right for the New Year's Six Bowls and all that. Alright guys, I'm going to skip the commercial break and I'll be back.
Welcome back to the College Football Playoff Selection Show. Presented by
I want to know who is this guy's voice.
Welcome back to the College Football Playoff Selection Show. Presented by AT&T.
Michigan Wolverines. Florida State
Harbaugh's back.
Georgia Bulldogs.
You gonna take what belongs to you.
I know Michigan had a weak schedule because a lot of the Big Ten teams are not great, but they beat Ohio State. That's always the game of the regular season.
We expand to 12. 6 highest ranked conference champions make it into the field automatically, but we've got one more ride here. 12:30 Eastern Time, Boo Corrigan, the chair of the College Football Playoff Committee, will be here to answer questions. We will hear from
Central,
all 4
rest of the New
coaches
Year's
who
Six
make the
Bowls
College
and
Football
top 25.
Playoff. And at 2:30 Eastern Time during our extravaganza. The rest
Wow, that's
of
like
the
another
New Year's
2
Six
hours
Bowls
from now.
and the entire top 25, the final one.
Yeah, this
in the
show's like
College
4
Football
hours.
Selection Committee
Not
for
going to
this
watch
year
all of it.
will
Well, I
be
will,
revealed.
but not on
That's
reaction
what they're
video.
playing for. College Football Playoff National Championship Trophy presented by Dr. Pepper.
I would like to see the Texas Longhorns win
So
the
let's
national
do it
championship in
one
Houston.
final time.
That'd be perfect.
Last year of the 4-team playoff, and we haven't had this much anticipation since the first year in 2014 when Ohio State, Baylor, TCU were fighting for one spot. And there are 4 teams for 2 spots.
Yeah, I kind of do remember that.
Today. The rankings are in. Brandon has put them into the Viz graphics machine, and
It's
we're
ready?
about to unveil who will be in the college football
Okay, well, number
playoff
1 and
for
number
the
2,
2023 season. It is presented
it's either
by
Michigan
AT&T.
and Washington. They
The
should
final
be
rankings
both
from
in.
the selection committee,
Here we go.
the number 1 team in the country is. We're seeing these when you do, and it's Michigan. There was some thought because Washington has a couple more wins against the top 25 that maybe the Huskies would move into that spot. But the Wolverines,
Michigan, they pretty
we
much
assume,
dominate
will go to
everyone.
The Rose Bowl. The semifinals are in the Rose Bowl and in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day. The perfect setting
We'll
for
see.
the semifinals.
Well, Washington
And
will go to the Rose
Wolverines
Bowl,
are going for
which
the
means
3rd straight year. They're 13-0.
Michigan's going to the Sugar
There's Jim
Bowl.
Harbaugh.
New
Who's got
Orleans,
it better than you,
Superdome.
Jimmy?
It's crazy that he got suspended during the regular season. Now he's back.
Determined.
All right.
Resolute, probably. Oh, I don't see any whole milk there, just orange juice. Diet Coke. Who's number 2? We assume it will be the Washington Huskies.
Yes.
And it is indeed. What a job. Kalen DeBoer
They deserve
and
it.
Washington
It's great to
ripped
see a
them
Pac-12
9.5
team in it.
underdog to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game.
And they're
Pickleball
going to the Rose
escaped
Bowl?
from
That's
Seattle,
perfect.
And they absolutely made a statement, and they're going to the playoff.
All right, I have
for the first
Texas
time
number
since the
3,
16th
Alabama
season.
number
I think to the
4.
point where people
Please
assume
do
that
not
Oregon's
show
gonna win
Florida
that
State
game.
or
People were very
Georgia.
confident Oregon was going to win that game, and the way Washington took the field and started that game set the tone, and it never looked back from there.
And to me, the physicality of the Huskies dominated. You thought Oregon was going to be the more physical team. Washington controlled the line.
Yeah, I thought Oregon would win the rematch.
Okay, now remember how the committee does this.
Thought they
You
would.
have 6 teams in a group, then you rank them, and the top 3 are taken off the board then, and then they
All right,
repeat the process.
this is it, man. Here we
So
go.
in the rankings, the final time they went through the group phase, here's the 3rd team that was taken off and put on the board. Who's number 3?
Yes!
This is Longhorns. Steve Sarkisian's
Yes!
team winning a conference championship.
I'm right so far.
2009 and making the playoff for the first time.
Yes!
Haven't even been
Finally!
making the playoff. And here they are, final year of the 14th.
Oh, you know they're happy. You know they're happy. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
That will put them in New Orleans. And while Washington's the second seed and will wear the home jerseys, that's going to be somewhat of an advantage from a crowd standpoint for Texas, one would think, if that is indeed how the semifinals are matched up and the sites that they have. So we have Michigan, Washington, Texas. As we said right off the top, you've got these one spot left, and you've got 4 teams with resumes. Texas now has made it into the
Are they going to do number 4 next?
Look at these remaining resumes, 3 teams, 1 spot. Alabama, Georgia, Florida State.
Alabama and Georgia are better than Florida
Come
State.
out in your judgment?
I'll be shocked if Florida State's in this.
Alabama should be at 4.
Yep, they should be.
Alabama should be
the injuries
be.
to Florida State.
They beat the best team.
You can't
period.
avoid it. It's nothing against what they accomplished. Obviously, what they accomplished is extraordinary, to be undefeated, be an ACC champion. But that injury to Jordan Travis is part of what the committee takes into consideration.
Yep.
If you're looking at Alabama
They're
versus Florida
thinking
State,
like
under
I'm
the current
thinking.
team and roster, it'd be very, very hard to imagine Alabama not being there at 4.
We go back to the rankings in the unveil. Let's look now at number 6 and see who's been eliminated and see what the final decision came down to. Who's number 6?
Florida State. Oh!
So after consecutive national championships,
Shit.
Georgia will not compete in the playoff, and this is also the first time that
Didn't thought they would go down 6.
And the penultimate rankings has fallen completely out.
Well, their strength of schedule is pretty weak, so.
With the decision that everyone thought we would end up having.
All right, Florida State's number 5. Alabama number 4.
1 spot. Whoever's 4 plays Michigan. Number 5, heartbroken. Who's number 4?
Alabama. Yep. I'm right.
Turns to the playoff, and so we have another unprecedented situation as
I'm right.
Florida State winds up at number 5, and Florida State is the first undefeated champion from a Power 5 conference to fail to make the field
yeah. I know that's
in
a
the college
shame.
football playoff era.
Florida State might play Georgia in the Orange Bowl.
I'm not shocked with how Florida State played the last couple weeks.
I'm
They
right.
just have
I am
dropped off
right.
Considerably at
I
quarterback.
got it
And
right.
And it's understandable, and I feel terrible for them. They did everything you
Oh,
could possibly ask them to
yes.
do, and here they are on the
Yes.
outside looking in.
Yes.
A lot of people will have big
Yes.
issues with this. They'll ask, why do we play the games? Why are we looking at a team that's undefeated that did everything asked of them to punch their ticket? But the committee actually did.
Wait.
The thing that they've talked about for
Michigan's
the last 10
playing
years.
Alabama in the
Forever
Rose
it's been,
Bowl?
well, you know,
and
it's kind of the most
Washington,
easy to
Texas in the
justify, well,
Sugar
this
Bowl?
team has
No,
0
it should
losses,
be
this
the
team has 1
opposite.
loss, so therefore the
Should be the
0-loss team should be
opposite.
ahead of the 1-loss team. This is the
How did they get to
took
decide?
everything into account. They took
That
a
makes
step
no
back.
sense.
They acknowledged injury, which they've talked about in
Washington
the past.
needs to be in the
And they
Rose Bowl.
put in
Alabama needs to
the
be in the
4
Sugar
best
Bowl,
teams.
right?
And that is
Isn't
not
that
an easy
how
thing to
it
do.
works?
So I want to tip my cap to the
SEC
committee
team in the
because
Sugar
that is
Bowl,
a difficult
Pac-12
decision
team in
to
the
make,
Rose Bowl.
And they think they probably went.
Oh, you
things
got that
was
one wrong.
A little less popular
Who
than it
gets
would have
to
been had
decide
they just gone with
that?
the undefeated Power 5 champ.
Well, I'm going to completely disagree with you. To me, this is a travesty to the sport. Because we go out there on the field and we play the game. And regardless of whether it looks good in the quarterback position, regardless whether we win with
Sorry if I
offense,
got loud
whether we
for a
win with
second,
defense,
because I'm
the name of the
happy
game
that
is
I'm
to
right.
win.
I am
and
happy
that's a reason never before
I am
has
right.
this not been done. Winning a Power 5 conference,
I'm
going
happy that I'm
undefeated,
right.
and not getting into the playoff.
I can't
So
see.
I understand
These
we
will
wanna
be
look at
great
style
games.
points and who
They
are
would
we
be.
gonna
They're not
get
going to
for
be
the best
blowouts.
matchup?
I
But
guarantee
that's
you.
not what this is about. This is about understanding to get the 4 best teams. One team has a loss, and that's Alabama. One team doesn't in Florida State. And the fact that this committee could take a Power 5 conference
You gotta
champion
have the
that's
SEC
undefeated,
champs in it.
those
Come
kids
on.
that went out there and
You
busted
got
their
to.
behind and not get into
Right?
the playoff based on the eye test. Mind you, this is the same Alabama team who needed a prayer in Jordan Hare to beat an Auburn team that lost to New Mexico
Prayer
State.
in Jordan Hare?
That's really what has me bothered right now.
Reese, can you deliver the strength of record, strength of schedule thing? Because you're making it sound as if Alabama played nobody. Go ahead.
Yes, you are. Because they're in the top 5
Holy
in
crap.
strength of schedule.
Yes.
Florida State's 55th.
I'm
totally
glad
get
I'm
what you're
right.
saying. It's absolutely heartbreaking and devastating for them. The ACC has a winning record against the SEC this year, 6-4. 2 non-conference games for Florida State this year against the SEC, and they won both of them. I get it. But they're a different team, and this has been your point.
Yes, they are.
Yes, that has been
Without
my
the
point.
quarterback,
So,
they're not that great.
I feel awful for Florida State and Jordan Travis. Because if he was still playing, this would be a different conversation. Everything you speak of was accomplished with Jordan Travis as their quarterback.
They won the last 2 games without him, though.
Yes, and that's when we saw this team with Tate Rodemaker
and Brock
Glenn.
Yes.
55 yards passing last night, it wasn't pretty. Here's the thing, Bull, and honestly, I hear everything you're saying. If our goal is to have the 4 best teams, there's nothing to do with what you deserve. There's nowhere in the bylaws that say you have to be undefeated. There's nowhere in the bylaws that say if you're in a Power 5 conference, you're the champion undefeated, you get in. I feel terrible, but when we look at this Florida State team and what they are today, what they were last night, what Alabama, who lost to Texas, who was the 3rd team in this thing, what they were then and what they are now. This Alabama team is different, and you know this. And this Florida State team is different, and you know this. They lost their quarterback. It's not a receiver. If Worthy doesn't play for Texas, they're still a really good football team. When you lose your quarterback, that is different than any other position in any other sport on earth.
Let's
quarterbacks.
You
just got to win a different way.
Let's get Kirk in quickly. Kirk, when you've heard these discussions and these arguments, there's a lot on Florida State's side, from winning against the SEC to the ACC success against the SEC. Is this simply a case where had Jordan Travis not been hurt, or to be fair, let's say Tate Rodemaker had really put up some numbers offensively in the Florida games. You had a little more data to support that Florida State would be competitive, that this would be a no-brainer decision in the Seminoles to be in. And this all centers around the established criteria by the committee that they evaluate injuries.
Well, you'd have to ask Boo that when he hops on here in a couple minutes. But I think all of us. I think if Tate went out and lit it up, it'd be a lot like what Cardale Jones did for Ohio State. I think the committee evaluated based on what they saw. And by the way, what Florida State did at the Swamp was impressive. I called that game. That was a tough environment. I don't care what Florida's record was. That game was impressive for them to be able to get out of that game with a backup quarterback. But when you're looking at what they did the last 2 games and you're evaluating, they went all the way down to the 3rd guy, a freshman. This is nothing against Mike Norvell. I think we all are proud and so happy to see that Florida State brand back from where it was 3, 4, 5 years ago to where it is now. It has sustainability, and it's going to be around with Mike, and they're going to do a great job. To me, if you took J.J. McCarthy off of Michigan, we'd be saying the same thing right now about Michigan. If you took Michael Penix off of Washington the last 2 games, and they were struggling with a backup quarterback, we wouldn't be looking at the totality of Washington's season. We'd be looking at the last 2 games. You have to look at the last couple games without the heart and soul. This guy is the face of this resurgence of Florida State, Jordan Travis, and to take him out is just as big as any player in the country that you would take off that roster. So to me, it's a reflection of what he meant to that team specifically. And these last 2 weeks, giving Tate and giving Brock the backup, the 3rd string guy, an opportunity. And it's just a reality. You're comparing them, Alabama to Florida State. You got to give Alabama the nod, even though they had a close game against Auburn in a rivalry game. They beat Georgia on a neutral site, and Georgia was the team, and Alabama just beat them. You cannot take Alabama out of this. They have to be in, and I think the committee did a great job. I tip my cap as well.
It'll be interesting to hear when we talk to Boo Corrigan if that was the biggest thing, and if prior to that, you wouldn't want one game to change this, but I haven't been able to get Boo for a couple of weeks to answer whether any team was deemed unequivocally better than the others, which is also listed in the protocols in the process, and whether they, up to yesterday's point, viewed Georgia in that realm and therefore gave Alabama the nod. Here are the resumes. By virtue of being undefeated, that's going to give Florida State an edge in strength of record, so they're 1 spot ahead. Alabama has the edge in strength of schedule rank. They have the edge in wins-loss records against the top 25 in terms of numbers of wins. And the key wins are pretty close, with the one that's the biggest, certainly the win against Georgia for the Tide yesterday.
Yeah, and that was, I think, ultimately what put them over the edge. The way that they won, as much as anything else, controlling the line of scrimmage, dominant in the run game at times, defending the pass. Georgia came in as one of the best passing teams in America, and the lockdown coverage on those wide receivers, including Brock Bowers, was remarkable. I'm still amazed by the decision that was made and looking at all of this. Alabama, there is no question in my mind they're one of the 4 best teams. I feel terrible for Florida State. But back to the original point, I wonder how much the decision had to do with Alabama's affiliation with the SEC and the SEC's performance at the top of college football when given the opportunity over the course of the last 10 years in the playoff and the 15 years before that, well, it was the BCS. I wonder the SEC how much that factored in, because it's tough. It's really tough to consider crowning a national champion without an SEC team being involved in the top 4. It's really hard to imagine that, just given how that league is played in championship settings over the last 2 decades.
And if you're looking at that point, then to me, you're projecting, you're trying to get the best matchup based on performance, not getting the teams that deserve to be in my opinion. And I think we look at this from a selfish standpoint. We want the best matchup so we can say, you know what, this year's semifinals wasn't a blowout. It wasn't a blowout like it's been the last couple of years, that we get good matchups. And I just think that's devastating for the kids at Florida State. And I think we're diminishing how you win. It's okay to win with defense. It's okay to have a dominant defense and win a football game. It doesn't always have to be scoring 50 or 60 points. And I think as a football nation, as a group of analysts, we got to wrap our mind around that, because to me, this is about, let's get the 4 best matchups. We can sell it and we can do all these different things. Who cares if Florida State won 16-6 with defense? They dominated a Louisville team from a defensive standpoint. Who cares?
I don't either. I mean, but I will say this. I think they seem like separate arguments to me, Boog. You can win with defense. You can be a defensive-minded team and win, but it's a different argument as to whether they're still the same team that put together this resume that you say merited them being in the playoff, which is a reasonable position to take. I'm just saying it seems like 2 different arguments that you're conflating a little
No team is the same. From the beginning of the season to the end, no team is the same. So to your point, I agree with you. They're not the same team, but that's okay. You can be a different team. I've been on teams that lost 2 or 3 games at the beginning of the season and went on to win the Super Bowl. You can adjust and you can change. That's what good coaching is about. Jalen Milroe is not the same player now that he was at the beginning. Tommy Rees changed the game plan. Nick Saban coached him up better, and now he's playing at an elite level. He changed. It's okay to change.
I hear that they changed, but that's different. You're talking improvement. We're talking missing major factor, which I know we're going around in circles. Joey, I want to give you real quick last word here.
A couple things just happened there that I hate to hear. Any connection to the SEC and what they've done in the past being any part of this decision. If that's the case, that's disappointing to me. I would hate to hear that happen. And then don't use the term we when you start to give your point there, because there is not a we in this. We don't care about the matchup. We don't care about who's playing who and where they're playing them. We are here to get the 4 best teams.
I agree with that.
That is what we've tried to accomplish. That's why there's 13 people in the room at times. Some people have to step out when their team is talked about. That's why it's done that way, to avoid the connections to what people have done in the past and this theory. And when we say it here, it only runs wild outside, where people think that we care about the matchup, the game, what conference gets in, what conference gets out, and who those can. And I hate to hear it, because we don't. It doesn't matter who plays who. What matters is we get the 4 best teams in. And sitting here today, I love the defense of Florida State. And I feel bad for Florida State because, quite honestly, to win those last 2 games with their 2nd and 3rd string quarterback might be the best accomplishment in college football.
Yeah. You think Alabama's better?
It might be. Do you think Alabama's better? When we started this, I said it's an easy decision.
Okay.
Because I truly believe Alabama's the better team. But that doesn't take away from what Florida State has accomplished. Maybe the best accomplishment in college football, to go beat Louisville with your 3rd string quarterback. I love it for Florida State. But unfortunately, it doesn't make them better than Alabama.
Well, here are the matchups. But just a little side note, too. Steve Sarkisian against his former employer. I won't say former team, because none of the guys are still there anymore, but he used to be the head coach at Washington. That's one of the semifinals. Alabama getting the nod over Florida State to play Michigan, we presume, in the Rose Bowl. That'll be announced a little bit later on. And Florida State, it is official, I'm told, so that will be in the Rose Bowl, Michigan and Alabama. The All-State Sugar Bowl will be Washington and Texas. And Florida State, you know, I mean, TCU and Baylor in 2014 were heartbroken, devastated, and I'm sure there is a lot of anger in Tallahassee as a result of this. Just a terribly unfortunate set of circumstances.
Really
with Mike Norvell, who has done a fabulous job at Florida State, put the Seminoles in position, and now Now will be a challenge of leadership for him in the moment, but I think it's fair to give them a little bit of time to grieve as we're joined by the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, Boo Corrigan. So, Boo, we just saw the reaction from Florida State, undefeated, Power 5 champion. Their conference has a winning record against the SEC overall, yet Alabama got the nod over them. And I know you don't go head-to-head, but you do go with the 6 teams and then top three teams ranked off the board. So you got Michigan, Washington, Texas off the board. So in some instance, it came down to Alabama and Florida State. Why did you choose Alabama?
Well, I think in looking at it, and again, that was the decision, was Alabama at 4. Florida State is a different team than they were through the first 11 weeks. Coach Norvell, their players, their fans, an incredible season. But as you look at who they are as a team right now, without Jordan Travis, without the offensive dynamic that he brings to it, they are a different team. And the committee voted Alabama 4 and Florida State 5.
There are a number of people in that committee room, Boo, who have football backgrounds. Jim Grobe, great coach at Wake Forest. You had Will Shields, who's a Hall of Fame player. You've got Joe Taylor, great coach. Chris Ault, great coach. When they were debating this, and Booger's been talking about it's okay to win with defense, when the coaches, the football judgment people in the room were debating this, what moved them?
I think it's one of the questions that we do ask is from a coaching standpoint, who do you want to play? Who do you not want to play? And as we go through that, again, looking at where we are today, right? Not where we were 3 weeks ago or, 8 weeks ago. Who do they want to play? Who do they not want to play? And they've got a significant voice in the room. And as we went through that and we went around and around, late last night, came back again this morning to do it again. And, again, we came back with, the top 4 as we did in Florida State at 5.
How many times did you go through that process?
Half dozen, 8.
How many times?
6.
How many times did it come out differently from this final version?
No, it was much more the debate in the room, right, as we're going around it. And each person, at one point in time, it was each person spoke about where they were with all of it, right, with 1 and 2. Where are we with 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and making sure that we got that right. But there was never a rush moment, Reese. There was never a, hey, it's this or that, or it's this time or that time. We just wanted to make sure we got it right, which is why we came back again this morning and went through this thing and went through all of it again.
He says...
We talked over the last couple of weeks, Boo, about the injury to Jordan Travis. It's in the protocol
he thought the
that
committee
the committee
would get it wrong,
is bound to evaluate when coaches or players aren't there, or if they aren't going to be there.
He agrees.
How would you say you balance
with this selection,
that part of the evaluation for Florida
but
State?
he thinks
against
Washington
Alabama beating the team
one.
That you guys had ranked number
I can
1,
see
and perhaps,
why,
even though you wouldn't tell me before, perhaps some in the room
it's
had
not
thought
like
was
if they
unequivocally better
if they
than
crushed
everyone
Oregon,
else up to that point.
yeah, they should be number 1.
Yeah, we had 8 really good teams this year, right? Somewhat of a unique year in the last year of the 4, right, as we go through this. But, looking at the player availability was really important to what's going on. And I think someone said it there, you can lose a running back, you could lose a wide receiver, but, a quarterback as dynamic as Jordan Travis, it changes their offense in its entirety. And that was really a big factor with the committee as we went through everything.
This guy
I know this is
sounds
not
like he's losing his voice. Does he always sound like that?
Supposed to come up necessarily, but as you look at these matchups and we move to this next era of college football where there's a perception that there is a Big 2 conference situation and everybody else. All 4 of these teams are going to be in either the Big 10 or the SEC next year. How was that evaluated in terms of being concerned about leaving out an undefeated champion from another league?
It really wasn't. I mean, when you think about the differences that'll be going on in scheduling and everything that happens with those teams as they do go into a new conference, I mean, again, feel horrible for Coach Norvell, the players, but again, they're a different team now than they were earlier in the year. And you know, it's been a long couple of days.
Number one team in your rankings, Michigan. They've played half their schedule almost, 6 of their 13 games without their head coach on the sideline. How did that factor into the evaluation of Michigan?
You know, in the room, as we talk about it, so much of it is about player leadership, right? And the young men that are on the program and driving that. Obviously, it hurts not to have your head coach. Sharon Moore came in and did a great job when Coach Harbaugh was not available. But, you know, those players found a way to gather together and continue to keep the mission at heart.
Booth, thank you very much for your time. I know it was a very difficult decision and one that's going to be controversial, and you'll have a lot more questions to answer about it, I'm sure, over the next day or two. But we thank you for your time and thanks for your candor today in terms of evaluating Florida State and the impact of the injuries. And I'm sure we'll talk to you a little bit later on in this show today.
Yeah, thanks to all you guys for what you do for college football. It's really important.
Nick Saban now moves to 11-1 in
Greatest
SEC
of all
championship
time.
games, and head coach of the Crimson Tide is with us now. Nick,
you know, I would like to see Alabama win the whole
SEC,
thing.
Slam dunk, you're getting into the playoff.
It would be kind of
What
funny
was
if they
last
do win it
night
all.
like for you, knowing that there was at least some controversy about whether you would make the field?
Prove the haters wrong, right?
Well, it was a tough night. I didn't sleep a lot because there's a lot of good teams out there. Florida State's certainly a good team, and to go undefeated in their league. And it's unfortunate that some good team had to get left out, but I really think that our team earned the right to be here. He beat number 1 Georgia in the SEC championship game. They've worked hard all year to improve, and I'm really proud of what they've been able to accomplish together as a team.
Why would you say that your team was able to finish the deal yesterday? What is it about this team? Because Georgia came, responded, gave you a punch, and you needed to finish the game. What was the key factor in getting them to the point that they were able to do that?
Well, this team has shown great resiliency all year long. I mean, we've been behind in several games, came back in the second half. We knew that when you play a team like Georgia and you play teams like we're going to play in the playoffs, they know how to win. So you have to go out there and prove that you know how to win in terms of being able to sustain for 60 minutes and keep making plays and keep playing hard. And I think our guys have done that all year, and they certainly were able to do it last night.
Coach, it's Greg, man. It's amazing what you guys have been able to do this year and just how the team has grown. And frankly, starting on November 1st, it was as if a switch had flipped and you had figured out your team. You knew how you wanted to attack, and I guess the architecture that you thought this team might be, they started to finally embody that as the season went along. So what can you say about the individuals on the team and the buy-in and being able to improve the way they have from month to month and now playing their best football in December?
I think the one thing about our team that I absolutely love is they're a team. You know, everybody buys into the principles and buys the organization. They respect and trust each other. And the big thing about that is when you truly have a team, every individual on the team makes the next individual better. And I think that's what's happened on our team through this transition that we've gone through from the 3rd game of the season on. And I think it's paid tremendous dividends for how we've been able to improve.
Hey, Coach Booker here. When it comes to Jalen Milroe, he starts the season, then he doesn't play against USF. Now he's one of the best quarterbacks in America. What changed over that period of time to get him to that point to where he is now?
Well, I think Jalen learned, you know, how to be a point guard. I've said this many, many times. You know, in the quarterback position, you have to distribute the ball to somebody every play. And your choices and decisions are paramount in being able to do that in an efficient manner. And he learned how to do that. He learned that he just didn't have to make every play, that him making plays was about being a point guard and distributing the ball to everybody else on the team. And he's always been a great ad-libber. So when the play breaks down, he's great at making plays himself, and using that ability to really put a lot of pressure on the defense has made him a phenomenal player.
Coach, nobody has more experience in this postseason than you. Just for fans to understand, you're going to get done with this interview. Do you already have a film ready to be broken down of Michigan? How quickly do you get this thing turned?
Well, you know, I've always thought that when you have this much time off, that you got to give the players a little bit of time and kind of look at it more like a one-game season because psychologically, you know, you can practice too much for a game. You can prepare too much for a game. But from a coach's perspective, we haven't seen that much of Michigan. I've seen them on TV a few times. They got a great team. They're well coached. They're physical. They got a really good defense. They play well on offense. So this is going to be a challenge for our coaching staff as we recruit and do other things that we have to do to manage our roster now to be able to transition into this game. We also have academic issues. You know, we got finals coming up and things like that. So working around all those things. But normally we start about the middle of the month, and that's when we'll really start practicing for the game. The players will lift and run and do a little 7-on-7 on their own, but basically that's when we'll start transitioning into getting ready for this game.
Coach Booker talked about how good Jalen Milroe has become from USF till now. But from a coaching staff standpoint, how have you guys had to adjust to some of the playmaking skills of Jalen Milroe? Because at times it's ad-lib, and they just love cutting away to you on the sidelines when some of these ad-lib things are going on, and your reactions have been classic. So how have you guys had to adjust to his style of play?
Go, Jalen. Go, Jalen. That's what I say on the sideline sometimes. So, but no, I think our coaching staff has done a phenomenal job of taking the players that we have on offense, taking Jalen's skill set, helping him develop as a passer in the passing game to be able to process, throw the ball to the right guy, throw it on time. It's helped our receivers and our entire offensive team gain a tremendous amount of confidence in him, but also to design things that he is exceptionally good at in terms of whether it's a quarterback run that puts a lot of pressure on the defense, which I think has helped our entire running game. You know, we've actually run the ball more efficiently when we put some quarterback runs in and some things that they have to defend on the perimeter because of his skill set. So he's made the other players around him better, and he's, by the way he's distributed the ball, but he's also given them better opportunities because of what his skill set is and what he can do and how he can put pressure on the defense.
Nick, I figure I better ask this question now because you're not going to want to be hearing stuff like this in Pasadena. Winningest team in the history of college football, Michigan, #2 Alabama. Nobody's won more national championships in Alabama. Going to Pasadena, grandest stage in college football, place where you won your first title as the head coach of the Crimson Tide. What about, as a guy who appreciates the history of the sport, what do you anticipate that spectacle and that scene to be like?
Well, it's going to be fantastic. You know, it's a great competitive venue. It's a great environment. You know, growing up in the Big Ten as a coach, you have a special appreciation for the Rose Bowl. You have a special appreciation. I coached at Ohio State and Michigan State, so playing Michigan has always been, you know, kind of a huge challenge. So, but it's just the next game for our players, and they got to get ready for it like it's the next game. It's always the most important game, the next game that you play. So, you know, your focus and what you need to do to prepare for that game and play well is the most important thing to stay focused on. There's going to be a lot of external noise. You know what I think about all that stuff.
Yes,
so
yes.
You got to focus on what's going to happen on the field and channel your passion into execution.
Nick, thanks a lot. Congratulations on the SEC championship, getting into the playoff. Really appreciate your time today. Now go get some sleep.
Hey, thank you guys. Have a good day. Thanks.
All right. Nick Saban, head coach of Alabama. The reactions across the country.
All right, I'm sorry for not talking much because I want to hear what they have to say. I'm surprised they didn't do any commercial breaks, but I think they're about to have one. They just talked to all the four coaches.
Celebrating big time, and then the other side of it, an unprecedented team left out in Florida State. The injury to
what about
Jordan
Georgia's
Travis
reaction? We didn't get to see Georgia's reaction. Did we see Georgia's reaction? No watch party for Georgia?
Florida State at #5. We get plenty of reaction.
Florida State and Georgia
country,
are
including
pissed
Chris
off.
Fowler,
They're
when you come
mad.
back.
Especially Florida State because they won their conference.
Everybody know who I am.
I wish the committee somehow said, you know what, we're going to have 6 teams in it. 6 teams. Washington and Michigan getting a bye.
Want the power of...
Alright guys, I'm going to stop the reaction video. I've gone long enough. Well. And later I'll find out the bowl matchups, and then whenever I can, I'll do that Bowl Mania prediction video. So I'm sorry this reaction is long, but I had to do it because this was the biggest day for the committee ever. The last year with the 4-team playoff format. So let me know if you somehow watch all this. Thank you very much. Do you agree with the committee? Let me know. Till then, guys, have a great night. Bye-bye.